Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Sunday chat today is, first off, I'll get it out of the way, a review of the plans from yesterday. Now for anybody who didn't watch the video, yesterday's video was based on last Sunday's chat and the video that related to. It's not my video, but I was given the link by a viewer and said, go and have a look, you might be interested. I went and had a look and I am interested because the content of that video might, maybe explain some of the things that don't work so well here. Now I said could, might, yeah? I can't prove that one way or the other. But what I can do is try and replicate some of the advice and see what happens. So the plan yesterday was a bit ambitious, I appreciate that, and consequently failed miserably. Well, in totality it failed. And out of the corner of my eye I can see 3 of those flipping spiders. They're going to have to go. Because 2 of them are not little tiny things on the plants, you know. So anyway, distracted. They just keep catching the corner of my eye because they move. Anyway, the plan was to go round yesterday and water everything, but with 2 lots. One with no feed and another lot with a low feed adjusted to make the K element of the NPK relatively a lot lower than it has been. Now there is a fertilizer on the market that does exactly that. It's called K-Lite, and I thought, well, if I'm going to play this game, it'll be much easier to play the game if I had some of that. Well, the only place I found it for sale in the UK is on Amazon, and it was on Amazon UK and from 2 separate sellers, one being the manufacturer in the States that emphatically stated we do not post to the UK, and the other one said out of stock, we don't know if or when we're going to get it back. Now, unbeknown to many people in the States, because you wouldn't think about it, would you? That product would have been readily available to the EU because the States have got trading agreements set up with the European Union that have been set up and modified over the years. The UK left the European Union. Such agreements have not yet been set up. So there's things like customs and import taxes and stuff to consider now that possibly weren't there before. So I think a lot of people who used to perhaps post to the UK, they've just decided no, it's too much hassle. So there's a lot of stuff we probably can't get from the States now. And that being one of them by the looks of it, which is a shame because that would have sort of done the job. Well, it would have made it a lot easier, let's put it that way. So I've explained how I'm going to do it. I will use my MSU fertilizer, yeah, as a start point and a low TDS. I will then add calcium nitrate to bump up the nitrogen and the calcium element, leaving behind the magnesium, which will be bumped up using Epsom salts, leaving the potassium behind, and the potash, but I'm not so fussed about that. The MSU formula discovered that orchids just don't use much of that anyway. That's why that number, the P, NPK, the P, dropped right down anyway. And K-Lite went a step further. I must admit I'm a little dubious about the K-Lite taking the P and the K down to 1 compared with the nitrogen. Strikes me that might be a bit too low, and it might be fine for some orchids, but it might not be fine for others. And this is the problem we've got. Different orchids will use nutrients at different rates. So, what did I do yesterday then? Well, what we achieved yesterday was very quickly established once I started picking up the pots to water them. I've been using the sprayer now for some time to just go around the pots. thinking I'm watering the pots. Well, the first couple that I picked up, woo, light as a feather, dry from 2/3 of the way down, which in some cases was fine because there's no roots there anyway because they're still establishing them, and in other cases that was not fine because that's where all the roots are and they were dry. So I changed my mind and decided that all of my pots were going to get a thorough flush. So that's what they had. That took quite a long time, used up a fair bit of my water, because I was changing it more frequently. When I say a thorough flush, I meant, almost clean water for every pot. So that's what I did yesterday, and the idea is that the pots are now ready for any changes I wish to make. So that's as far as I got. The mounts got a spray. Oh, actually they didn't. I've got to do that today. I'll do that after I've filmed this. That only takes 5 minutes. And then tomorrow I'm probably going to have to get the RO unit out because I'm getting low. Now there are some orchids around that I still believe require a balanced high feed, and that's my 2 Vandas, which I throw in the bucket, and the Phalaenopsis, which are out on the kitchen windowsill, and what I've been doing with them is just bringing them in here and using the Vanda water, because that's got the level of feed I think is okay for them. And I do the same with Hannah's Phalaenopsis as well. But yesterday they had a good flush. As I say, I was doing this start point. And the idea yesterday was there was no differentiation, everything just got a thorough flush. And I'm confident now that the pots are pretty clean and don't have much, if any, residual fertilizer around the pots. I've got no guarantee. I'd probably have to do it 3 times to guarantee there's absolutely nothing left in the pot. I can't justify that amount of water. Not when I'm paying for it on a meter. That's for sure. So what didn't we get done then? What we didn't get done is nothing got fed. But what we did do, the other part of the plan, was to move plants around to get them in what I would call a best place for their light requirements, given the much higher light that I'm getting. And this grow room is in 2 halves, and it literally is down the line up there. This half, when the sun comes up over the house, comes out from behind the tree, comes up over the house, this half is in the sun. This half is never in the sun. So there's a distinct difference. There's 2 halves. So that's what I did yesterday. I picked up plants, give them a good flush, and then decided, are they going back where they came from? And if the answer was no, they went on the floor, out of the way, until such time as a space became clear because a plant moved from another shelf. So there's plants in totally different places now, and I'm happier that they are in the right place. And in doing so, sorry, I've got a flipping hair. Got a cat hair, no doubt. They get everywhere. What I thought I'd do is take the camera off so that it'll be handheld again, and go round. We'll have a look at each shelf, and I'll have a chat about what's on that shelf and why. Because some things are on a shelf not because that's where I want them permanently, but I don't want them in their proper place yet, perhaps because they're recovering or they're not growing very well yet. So I'll get the camera off the tripod, and we'll have a walk round and see what I got up to yesterday. There are many things that are not where they used to be. That includes some blooming plants. Just as a simple thing, this is where my blooming orchids go, yes? That gets morning sun. And I had a Miltonia sat there because it was in flower. Well, yes, it's nice to see it while it's in flower, but that's a stress level that sort of plant can do without. So we've rearranged plants more suited to their light requirements, and whether or not they're actively growing or whether they're in some form of recovery, in which case they don't want the strong light. I haven't done the 2 racks, the mounts, yet, and I've got to do them because I want those that need the higher light on this rack, those that need the much higher light on the front of it, those that still need good light on the back, and then those that need less light on this rack, because this rack doesn't get the sun. I still haven't done that, but as I'm going to water the mounts in a minute, I'll do it today. And then we're done with it. And then next time the pots get watered, my plan is to have one lot of water, those that aren't getting any feed today, I will water. I've got a pretty good memory and I can tell when I pick a pot up whether it was watered the day before or not. And that's how I'll do it. I'll go round and water all those that say are just getting a flush. The next day I'll go round with this newly contrived low-level feed for those that are going to have some. And those will be the ones that didn't get watered the day before. So it saves having to have those two sets physically on shelves. And what I thought I'd do, the trouble is I'll have to keep changing it, but as an idea, I thought we could number the shelves. Shelf 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah? And then put that number against the plant in my notes so that I actually know where it is. Would it help with the watering? Well, when I want to update my notes with the ones that just had the flush, no, it's not worth it. I was just thinking it might be a bonus to know where a plant is. It's not like I've got 10,000 plants, it's whatever it is, 170. Right, let's get the camera down. Be a bit wobbly for a bit. And upside down. Like being on that little roller coaster, isn't it? Right, so now the reason that's come on is because I left the door open. So we'll close the door round and shut that off. Right, we will move that one over there. And then this one can go over there, which now allows me to get up in this corner. Right, so what did we do then? All of the Restrepias. Now, somebody's going to comment that I thought you weren't using the low shelves because of your back. Well, when my back was a problem, those plants on those shelves were a problem. My back isn't a problem anymore. And I'm, you know, at the moment, I can still, what's it called? The Asian crouch, where you crouch down like a frog. Well, I can still do that and get up. There will come a time when I get down there and I'm going to be stuck and I'll have to find something to grab hold of and pull myself up. Those times are not here yet. So I can get down here and I can get up again. Now, as long as I can do that, I need to use the lower shelves. So what is noticeable about all the Restrepias up the back and the little ones at the front? Let me just zoom in on one. What is wrong with that Restrepia? Look at the colour of the leaves. They've all got purple leaves to one extent or another. They've been getting too much light. Now, there are certain elements in our feed that can cause that, either as an overdose or a shortfall, a deficiency. But I'm discounting that at the moment on the grounds that the thing that is the major change since I moved here is the light level, even in the winter. The difference between the highlight in the winter and now is that the highlight in the winter was short days. So it didn't have long enough to discolour the leaves. So that's why those are there. What else have we got down on this bottom shelf then? We've got this Vasa Vixella, Shady plant. We've got a couple of, well, that's actually a Dracuvalia that's starting to grow but is not happy, and then another Masdevallia type that's very unhappy. So those are recovering, those three. This one just, this is a strange one. I can't get the flipping thing to bloom, but it is pushing up new growths, and quite a few of them. So it's growing, and it's pushed out some nice roots. But not a sign of any blooms yet. maybe one day, but that's a shady plant, so that does need the shade. And then that one with the tatty looking pseudo bulb, which I would gladly take off, except for it's right next to that lovely new growth. And that's an Odontoglossum. So again, shade. Ooh, let me come up one. Now, those plants down there have got 2 shelves above them and the mounted rack across in front of them. So those are now in a much lower light situation. Now over here, up here, there are various things, but this is mostly my Miltonia species and recovering plants, a Masdevallia with the trouble with the leaves, which has now decided to bloom. So we have got some blooms on here now. And a few oddities that I can class as recovering plants. And also the Phalaenopsis species, Violacea, which is a shady plant. So that justifies that shelf. Recovering plants and my Miltonia. Yeah, so they've now got a lot less light. Those were over there on that shelf. So they should now be happier, less stressed. And then up here we've got all sorts. We have some dendrobiums, Phalaenopsis type. What else have we got? We've got this is a Latoria type that just doesn't seem to grow very well, but it is now. This is the Roy Tokunaga, that's a replacement actually, which has now got a lovely strong growth, but they don't need high light. And then Oncidium types, again, they don't need high light. And in amongst there, you've got, where did it go? Oh no, that went on the shelf below. Oh, you've got a spike. What's that? That's an Oncidium species. That's Chiromorphum. Oh, of course it is. Oh, that's got 2 spikes on it. And still some new growths pushing on. So yeah, so that's that lot then. Quite low light, better light, but out of the sun in that half of the grow room. Then over here, some things are in a place that might need changing. I'm playing with it. I've got my 2 Coelogenes here on a shelf 1 down. So they're away out of the half of the bright sunshine, but they're 1 shelf down. Now I'm thinking about the large specimen sized Coelogenes at Burnham's. The trouble is there's lots and lots of different species at Burnham's. Now some of those are in baskets up in the roof, but some of them are in quite heavy shade on lower benches. So obviously this varies from species to species. So temporarily I've taken those 2 out of bright light. I will have to check that that is right for those. Miltonia, that's the one that's been in the sun. It shows, doesn't it? Once you just look at them more carefully. And the other Miltonia that's on the end there, I'm not sure I should let it do it, but it's actually got a spike. That's a species. That's Vexillaria, I think it's called. Vexillaria, yeah. So that's a Miltonia species. This was one that Zana gave me. The idea being that I've got to try and get a seed pod. Well, I'm not even sure I want that to bloom. It's struggled, that plant, but we got 2 new growths, and the previous growth has a spike. So what I might do is let it bloom so that we can see it, and then not leave the spike on there too long. So that's that shelf. Down here we've got this one that's just finished blooming that I'm not sure the level of light that one needs. The reason that one got put there is because at the time I couldn't find anywhere else to put it, because it's one of those that's 2 shelves tall. So there's some shelves it can't go on. And then behind there is the 2 divisions of the Roseoglossum with the 2 nice strong new growths and new root systems starting to develop. So those are recovering from a repot with very poor roots. So I don't want them stressed by too much light. That's why they're there. And then the top shelf, I've got, again, this was on a sunny shelf because it was in bloom. It was the one that had the bloom right on the top. So that's been brought into the half that hasn't got the bright sun. and its partner in crime behind. So that's two black hair types. My epidendrum I've brought out of the bright light for the same reason. Got discoloration on the leaves, yeah, and yet a good version of that can be grown out in the garden if you've got the right climate in full sun, and they grow like a bush. But mine doesn't, or doesn't yet anyway. And the other one that's up here is this really big zygo. Now there's two schools of thought on zygos. Some ancient scrolls and runes actually say they're quite heavy shade lovers and they don't like bright light. And then you get the person who gave me enough information for me to stop killing them actually says if you give them more light, they will grow faster and perform better to keep up with that. So they adjust their growth habits to the light level. So although in the wild they may in a lot of cases be found in heavy shade, that's because that's where they grow. That doesn't mean they won't grow anywhere else. Yeah, always worth thinking about that. Do orchids in the wild get what they're given because that's where they are? And could they do equally well, if not better, in different climatic conditions? Nobody ever tries it. It's not like in cultivation, is it, where you can try these different things. Right, so that's over this half then. That is now deemed the shady half, along with one of the racks. So we got one rack and those shelves in the shady half. Yeah. Now it is remotely possible that if I put up with the racks being this one coming out of that little alcove, I can get another set of shelves in there. I've got two sets of shelves out there, yeah, that are suitable for orchids in here. That's where they came from, yeah. But I can't do that until I've got my benches and stuff made for my bonsai. So until I do that job of making the bonsai based benches, those racks aren't really spare yet. But one of those would fit in there nicely, yeah. This would then have to come out a bit, and I might have to move the Vander bucket over here or something so that I can get to things. So that's yet to be decided. I mean, at the moment I've got all the plants on the shelves, and apart from one or maybe two shelves, they're not all that squashed up, and some of them have actually got space. So do I need any more shelves? Anyway, over here, this shelf is a lot thinner on the ground now. We've got Nobly Dendrobium, that is Prosthetia, and then that's a Brassia, so that's a highlight plant, and the one up in the corner is Dendrobium speciosum, I think. I'm not getting in there to find out, but it's one of those that grows quite high up and grows quite cool, but does get bright light. Okay, I can't do the cool, but I can do the rest of it. And then we've got a Oncidium intergeneric here. Oh, let me turn this round. I did notice that after the repots, my pinguiculars are growing an awful lot better, and they're certainly doing their job. Look at the flies on that one. But yeah, they're looking good. That's an intergeneric, Oncidium type intergeneric, so good light for that. And for the time being, it's going on this shelf, which is quite bright light. Now over here, these are three Cattleyas that were up in the bright light that I'd think were getting too much light because they're recovering and they're not doing very well. And until they do very well, I've moved them into a lower light situation on the grounds they're farther away from the roof. And then we've got this, which is Delicatum. We've got this thing, which was named wrong. Turns out to be a Phalaenopsis type. But this one has got no discoloration on the leaves whatsoever. So at the moment, it's putting up with this. It's always been on this shelf, and it's not discoloured. So obviously it's happy in that light. And given that it grew that cane, and is now doing that, I think that one's happy where it is. So that stays on the same shelf. Now down here, we've got a Hamiltonara that's not doing very well, but the latest growth isn't bad. We've got a Dendrobium moniliform, and I'm still on the fence about how bright the light should be for that. But it's currently pushed up a lot of new growths, but it's yet to establish what I'd call a good root system. That is a very poor Phalaenopsis type that's got a kiki with a bud on it, and another kiki, and another kiki. It's not doing very well, but I've got that out of the bright light. And then there's a couple of Oncidium types that are in a poor state. They're not doing as well as they should be, so I've lowered them and taken the stress level down a bit. And then right down here, in amongst here, we've got some Oncidium intergeneric types, but given their blooms, they've got high percentages of Odontoglossum types within them, so I've taken them away from the bright light. And then we've got Dendrobiums here. We've got this Latoria type that has been hit by the light, so that's come down quite a bit. Still on the sunny side, but it's been taken away from the bright light. And then there's a couple more Phalaenopsis type Dendrobiums. They've just been brought down out of the bright lights because they haven't been doing quite so well. And that includes that Nobile type. That should be growing better than it is. It's recovering, so perhaps we'll get a bit more light later in the year. It's getting warm in here. Right then, Hannah's Phalaenopsis are 2 shelves down. So basically, although they're on the bright side of the grow room, they're 2 shelves down, so they've got quite a lot above them. So I'm not too worried about them. This top shelf, not sure that this should be up here in this level of light, but that's the Zygo, the very poor quality one that I deliberately bought as a bad plant to see if I could get it to bloom. I took a couple of spikes off of that yesterday. Up there, that's a Brassia, pushing on some nice strong growths, so that's a highlight, Oncidium type. And then this Cattleya's come over here because there was room. This has been pushing on quite nicely on the top shelf, the highest shelf in this place that's been on, and it's been doing okay. Well, it's only dropped down 6 inches by coming over here, and the reason is it makes more room for the larger Cattleyas to get light all around them rather than the bottom of the plants being in the shade because of other plants. And then come on brain, these things, forgotten now, Renantheras. I've got one that's been quite badly affected by light, so I've moved that back, yeah, and I'm still not sure, that perhaps ought to go down a bit lower. But part and parcel of that was the one that only had 1 root. It's now grown some more roots, so. And then the other 2, this one's growing quite nicely and has got quite a lot of roots and shows no discoloration whatsoever. So this is in the brightest place. And that one has got a little bit of discoloration, but very little, so I'm happy with him there. Down here on this shelf, we've got my 3 large Miltonias. These are all pushing spikes out. Yeah, so these are, and the one that I broke up at the beginning of the year and repotted, it's basically 4 sections that were cut off that are a back bulb and a new growth. And I did say if they attempt to bloom, I will stop them. What's that? Right up here. How did that escape my sight? And here, they've all got a spike on them. And I hate to do it, but I'm going to cut the spikes off because I want them to produce nice large bulbs, and then next year's new growth will have the strength behind it to push up a good spike with lots of blooms on. Ugh. I should have brought a coffee out. Right, so up here is Cattleya types. My Laelia purpurata's in there, my Laelia anceps is in there, both highlight orchids, and they've been spread out. So there's only 6 plants up there now. You might think that's a bit of a waste of space, but it means they've got space around them. So the light gets to all parts of the plant. This one's coming on quite nicely with its new growths. So's the Laelia anceps behind it, nice strong new growths. And this one's recovering quite nicely. It's grown roots, got a nice new growth pushing on. So none of these up here are what I would call recovering anymore. They're all doing okay. They've all got new growths, they're all doing roots, they're okay. And then when we get down to this shelf, this has thinned out a lot. And all that's left on here are the two Shady babies, one of which looks like this. Are these new growths, no spikes, and the other one doesn't. The other one's not doing so well at all. But, well, we'll see. It's got new growths coming. We'll see what happens with that. And then this is a intergeneric type with a spike that will be open very, very soon. Very soon. And these are big. If you think about it, when you look at an orchid bud, what are you looking at? What you're looking at is the three sepals, yeah, that enclose the lip and the two petals. They're inside. So if that's the size of the petal, the sepals, and they're going to do, you know, the triangle sort of, it's going to be big. So that's that. All of Derek's plants have stayed here. That early morning sun that I was on about was clobbering that Miltonia on that shelf, doesn't get to them. It hasn't got the angle to get to them, so they're okay where they are at the moment. And then up here, not in their permanent place by any means, but in a place where they're okay, is Victoria Regina. That's a cool grower. Well, that's in the line of fire of the fan, isn't it now? So that's a better place than where it was. Nobly type, incorrect name, so we haven't got a name for it. That is in the bright light half, but it's okay. It's not showing any signs of suffering from light, and it's in bloom, and I want to see it. So that's why that's there. And then this funny little Phalaenopsis type down here with the strange shaped blooms, distorted in fact. But we'll have to see what that one does. Because it does have two nice strong new growths coming on. We'll see what the blooms look like on them when we get them. So without sorting the mounts out, that's what I've done with the plants. And every plant is now, almost every plant is now in a place that I'm happy with it. Some of the plants are in the highlight half, and they probably shouldn't be. But this highlight half has probably got 3 weeks to go, and it's no longer the highlight half. Yeah? Days are getting shorter, sun's getting lower. And as it gets lower, the line that it forms here, when it comes out from behind the tree and over the house, it'll be lower when it comes over the house. This shadow's going to move, slowly but surely. And don't forget, I have got shade netting on this half as well. So that's as far as I've got, and a lot of that is for the plants, nothing to do with the feeding regime. The feeding regime starts next time I water the pots, and probably tomorrow for the mounts. But I don't want to mess about with the feeding for the mounts until I've got the plants in the place I want them. I've got Tolumnias round here with their backs to the bright light. What? You know, come on. They should be round this side of this rack. I've got long cane winter resting dendrobiums in the brightest light. Well, it's going to be difficult to fool them into thinking that their winter light is brighter if they're in the bright light during the summer. They need putting round the shady side. They need getting out of the bright light. And then we've got things that have got brassivola in them. They need good light, so they can come off of there and come round here. Yeah, so it's a matter of jiggling things around and see what they do. Yeah, and the winter resters that need the brighter light for the winter need getting out of the bright light now, so that for the rest of the summer they get a bit of extra shade. So there we go. There's some Cattleyas over here that I would be reluctant to put in bright light, but they are recovering now. We have got growth on them. all three of these. Growth on that one's right up the back, but they have all produced a new growth recently, and therefore will produce some roots. So those three are recovering now. They're not doing so bad. And then we've got my Arengus, for instance. Well, one of those is round here, right up on the corner in the brightest light on the rack, producing a spike. And that's because that, out of the three that I've got, is a highlight type. The other two aren't. They're shady lovers. So the other two are probably in a place that's okay for them. And then twinkly type things are here. They're probably okay there. They need reasonable light without being silly. So some mounts to shuffle around, which I will do. I'm not doing it today. I'm just going to water the mounts today and call it a day out here. I did a lot yesterday, and stuff outside as well. You know, there's only so much you can do in a day without wearing yourself out, and you get even less done the next day then. So that's where I am. That's the new program. The program that gets the plants in a better situation for their light requirements. Yeah, I don't worry about heat requirements because the temperature in here is roughly the same everywhere because of the circulating fan. So we don't get hot spots. Probably this top shelf up here and these two are warmer than the others when the sun's out, simply because the sun comes in through the roof and touches the leaves, which would warm them up slightly. So there are slightly warmer areas there. Now, once that sun disappears from the roof, that's gone. We won't have hot spots, it will be all the same. But we will still have brighter light than not, because obviously this side will always be brighter than the side closest to the house. But the differences won't be as great as time goes on. Right, stuff coming up. News and things coming up, although not orchids. Not this weekend, obviously, it's nearly gone. Next weekend there is a bonsai boot sale that I will be going to with my camera. The idea being I'll be looking out for, there's some traders there, but there's also bonsai people selling some of their superfluous stock. There could be pots for sale. There might be some trees that people have, gone off or have run out of space. They've got too many. So I'll have a look round and see if there's anything I fancy. So that's next Saturday or Sunday, I can't remember, but one of next weekend's days. And then the weekend after that, I'm picking Lynn up on the way, and we're off to the Orchid Society of Great Britain's meeting. Now, I've never been. I've been a member for a while. I joined to get the magazine, not to go to the meetings, because they're quite a long way off, not round the corner. And this one's on the outskirts of London, Twickenham. It's about 400 yards from Twickenham Rugby Ground, just to get a feel of whereabouts it is. And there isn't any rugby on next weekend, otherwise I might think twice. Get near the place. So that'll be I'll take my camera, see what's there. But the meeting is a sort of meet and greet for newer members, that sort of thing, and chatting and just that sort of thing. Then the afternoon is an auction, and according to Lynn, it's a good auction. It's not all scrappy little cuts and things like that people don't want. There's some good plants coming to the auction from them. So, but again, it's a first. I've never been, so we'll go and have a look round and see what's there. So that's something to do each weekend for the next 2 weekends, and then nothing for ages. Oh, and the Orchid Society that I'm a member of, the local one, the Wessex one, their garden party comes up. That's in August. Is it in August or September? Oh, it's in August, so we've got a garden party to come to. And that is at Alan's and Sue's place. And Alan has linked greenhouses with about 2,000 orchids in. So I'll be taking my camera to that. But we'll have to take it in turns to go in there, because if you walk in there and somebody comes in behind you, you can't get out. Because there's only one tiny little narrow corridor, because all the plants have taken over the whole place. It's like being in the, you know, real thick jungle area. There's plants everywhere. But hopefully I'll be able to get in there and have a look round. So that will be to come. And as I say, I'll keep you posted on these changes to the watering. And when I do my first mix, although lots of people aren't interested in feed and, you know, TDS meters and stuff like that, there are those that are. So I'll show you how I work out how much of each thing to put in. Because what I'm after, you see, is I'm altering the percentages. And what I want to do is my MSU formula is 13, 5, 15, I believe, NPK. Well, I want to get the 13 up to about 30 as a percentage. Now that's going to need some maths. And the NP, the P can stay where it is, so I don't need to worry about that. And the K will have to stay where it is at 15. So I want to take the nitrogen way, way above it, up to 30. Don't forget, it sounds like a really high level, but if the overall TDS reading is still only 80, it's not a high feed, is it? It's the percentages I'm changing, not the dosage. I'm keeping the dose low. So we bump that up. We're going to bump the nitrogen up. Yeah, I'll be doing that with the calcium nitrate, so that will bump the nitrogen up, and it takes the calcium up with it. So if the nitrogen is going to be around 30, I need the calcium probably at about 12, and that will probably just happen naturally, maybe even 15 for the calcium. Yeah, about half of the nitrogen, so say 15, that'd be closer. Yeah, so by using the calcium nitrate I can do that, and that's going to take the calcium up and take the nitrogen up, but we've left the magnesium behind. Now the percentage of magnesium to calcium should be about 3 to 1, sometimes 4 to 1, it depends on who you ask. So if the calcium is going to be 15, we need the magnesium at probably about 7, something like that, and it's not. So I need some Epsom salts to bring that one up to balance it with the others. The micro elements are going to have to stay where they are, because I haven't got the ability to bump those up, and I don't believe it's necessary. I reckon that in a natural wild environment, those micro elements are incredibly rare. Incredibly rare. So that's the plan. So I'll go over that. It's going to need a calculator to do it because I'm working on percentages. This is the strange thing. You have to let it go because otherwise it gets so flipping complicated. But if you add up all the elements in my MSU fertilizer, it doesn't come to 100. So what you have to do is, what I will be doing, because this is the way I can understand it, I sort of think, right, so if I had the TDS at 100, yeah, 13% of that is nitrogen. Well, that's all I need to know, yeah? So if I'm going to bump the nitrogen up, I need to work out how much of the other element, the calcium nitrate, which won't be 100%, it'll have so much nitrogen, so much calcium in it. So we have to work out the percentage of that that isn't real, yeah, and see what's left, and then bump the TDS up by that amount, which I'll have done with a calculator in advance, not while I'm doing it. And I'll probably get it wrong, but it'll be somewhere near it. That's good enough for me. Right, as it's Sunday, we do all if you're not subscribed, it would be nice if you did so, and thanks for all those that have. You know, the number of subscribers on this channel is creeping up slowly but surely. It's not a race. We should get up to 13,000 in the not too distant future, which would be good. That'd be a nice little milestone to tick over another 1,000, if you see what I mean. That's good, and the old thumbs up always helps. YouTube likes channels that have got a video with lots of thumbs up relative to the number of views. That's what it looks at. Yeah, again, it's a percentage game rather than a count. Yeah, and yeah, and for those of you that have gone across to the bonsai channel and subscribed over there as well, thank you very much. I'm desperately trying to get that channel up to the point where I can monetize it and get a little bit more in the way of funds and stop using up the the pot of gold that's got to last. Obviously, if I can reduce the rate at which I use that up, then I can live longer and still be comfortable. It is as simple as that. When that money runs out, I won't be able to afford this place. So we shall have to go and get a one-room flat somewhere, Anyway, thanks for those that have gone across there and subscribed and perhaps watched some of the videos. There's a few people that have started doing bonsai as a result. This is good. It's a nice hobby, although it's not a busy hobby. It probably would be if you had 100 trees, but I haven't. And never will have. I can't put that amount of time into it, so that's that. And thanks to the patrons, some have dropped out. Quite honestly, that was expected. Times are not easy going at the moment, are they? People are having to tighten their belts, and so, I mean, some of the people that have dropped out might be supporting many channels, not just one, and that something has to give, basically. If you want breakfast in the morning, we need the funds, so I can understand people dropping out, but a few have dropped out. I've had one new one, that was nice, thanks for that. And every now and again we get the old buy me a coffee kicks in, where somebody sort of thinks, actually that video was very useful to me, thanks a lot, I'll do the buy a coffee, leave a tip, because that's what that's for. So there we go, and yeah, this is going to go soon. And then that'll be gone for a year, and then that can come down out of here and go in a shady place so that its winter rest will be more beneficial. Well, that one had a total spray with the systemic yesterday. There's a lot of scale on it. They were hiding behind the blooms, because when you look at a plant in bloom, you look at the blooms, don't you? You don't look at the leaves and the leaf joints. So that had a complete soak yesterday. Hopefully that sorted it out, and yeah, I think on a note like that, we'll say cheerio for today, and thanks for dropping by. See you next time.